Samech Vav, Divrei Masku, Kaddish Ata, Yud Aleph Cheshvan, page Shin Samech Aleph Beis. Shin Samech Beis.
Right, so we saw the two madrigas for Ein Sof, and the Kavanah was even in the Ein Sof how this Kedem HaTzimtzum. But he was sort of was one Inyan Ein Sof how from Shocha B'Gilui, even though it's called, generally speaking, there Korol B'Yatzmusay, but even in that madriga, how it's still shy to being Gilu HaAtzmus and not Gilu for the sake of the Olam and Smamish. But nonetheless, we saw that its Inyan is Gilu Shocha B'Toich Atzmusay. And therefore we saw Mikol Mochim Hariv B'Chinas Mehusam Metzias Oyer Al Koponim. So therefore it can be described as an entity in its own right, as much as Oyer can be described as an entity in its own right. But therefore we call it Husam Metzias Oyer. It's well known that Leidok is the Oyer is bottled to the Moya. But compared to these colorlets in the Moya, there's a union where we can say it's Mahus Metzias over Oyer, and then there's another Madriga which we soon to describe, which is not Metzias at all. It's only the Pshitas of the Atzmus itself. So, close B'chinas Ein Sof, Shelifnei HaTzimtzum, Gam Shel Ma'ala M'B'chinas Aliyas HaRotzein, וגם B'chinas Ha'etzem, שזהו B'chinas Helem HaOyer, כל מוחים כל זה הוא B'chinas Hamshocha V'Gilui Min HaAtzmus. I think we dealt with that in the last class. אבל יש עוד מדרגה Ein Sof, והוא האור הכל בעצמוסי ממש, והיינו רק מה שביכולתי להועיל. And we spoke about this concept in the last year of what we call Yechoilets as compared to Koyach. And we say that Koyach, or capacity or power, well, that means something which has already got a certain definable or definitive state and a certain limited form for which it's miscaled, and therefore it's an identifiable koyach. When we say yechoilas, we mean ability and capacity to give forth in a way that we're talking about the unlimited capacity of the etem. In other words, the omnipotence of the etem himself. Just that we express that omnipotence in one given detail, and we say that he's got Yechol Toi L'Hoir. In other words, the omnipotence of the Atzmus, the omnipotence, the all capacity, there's also a detail in that which is Yechol Toi L'Hoir, plus all other unlimited things that could be Yechol Toi. And so that means that we're not talking about any oil which has been nimshach, and we're not even talking about even oil which is only to be megala the etem, but we're talking about that he could give forth oil. But that's moving it when I get to the whole omnipotence, the general concept that the Avish's omnipotence is kol yochel. But when you say he could give forth a given inyan, then to a certain extent you've placed a certain specificality within the generality of that omnipotence. Therefore, that's like a form of a gilui b'toich ha'atzmus. So it's not mamish gilui, it's still miyuvet b'tachlis ha'yichud with the atzmus. Just like when you say about a person that he could do something, but not that he's actually done it, but you say he can do that or he could, without his capacity, then you've limited the whole general capacity of that person, and you've said you're talking about that particular oifen which he could give forth. So in that particular prat, you've entered a certain area of discussion benegah to him, even though you're still talking about the shleimus of his atzma. And so that's the concept of of Yechilas versus Koyach. So there was the Rebbe that the other Madrega is the Inen of Yechilti Lahuya, not that he's actually given any forth yet. She'ein ze beginnen ze Malchus Matthias Klau Uklau. Kan Loi beginnen ze Oyer Shelifnei Atzimtum. Even though we're talking Lifnei Atzimtum, it's not a Inen for Oyer, even though it is prior to the Tzimtum. We're very high Madrega in Oyer, as we said before. Shari hu biatzmusei mamish. When you say Yechoilas and you use the concept of Yecholte, then you're referring to matter and Aina, which is purely how it is in his Atzmas, and what you might call Mitzad di Atzmas. Ve'einu b'chinas dover b'fnei Atzmai mina Atzmas. It hasn't yet become Mashiach when we talk about the oil, which is even Yam Shocha V'Gilui, then it's already become oil which is Me'iyah mina Atzmas. Over here, nothing has yet been actually miskale from the Atzma. Ki bi Atzmas mamish einu shayach loy machas v'sholem oi dovo gam loy b'bchinas koyach ha'oyer. So the Rebbe said, in Atzmas mamish, and that's what we've used the expression here, Atzmas mamish. In other words, that even though we're talking about, we've used the expression Yechoilas, we've said that that doesn't give rise or give us the permission to define any entity outside the Atzmas. So that means that we're talking about the shleimus of the Atzmas mamish, not something else together with the Atzmas. And therefore he said, since you're talking in Atzmas mamish, Einu shach loy machas v'sholem oi doa. You can't say any other matter, even by way of Gilei Oyer.
I have a question. He just said that you cannot name something in the Atzmus, but right before he said that in the brackets, he named something in the Atzmus. He said that there's another, or...
I don't know what you're referring to.
The brackets say that you can't say that there's something besides the Atzmus, right?
That's what we're saying. That's what we just said. There seems to be a slight... you've missed the flow. Some sort of click that you haven't got. I mean, that's what we're saying. That's in effect, what you just complained about, that's in effect what we're talking about. That's in effect what we're saying. That there's no inyan here which can be described as something together with the Atzmus, which would mean that it's apart from the Atzmus. Dahainu, the oil which is already Bam Shocha V'Gilui. Over here we're talking about something that's only described as a capacity of the Atzmus, but hasn't given forth anything yet. So therefore we're not saying that there's any dover in its own right apart from the Atzmus. And that's what he puts in brackets. He said in the Atzmus you can't say that. When you're talking about Atzmus, you can't talk about any other matter. You only talk about the Atzmus. Not even the state of potentiality of the earth. And that's why I said that expression is an unusual expression. And the word koyach means potentiality. The potentiality to give forth light. In other words, the Yechoilas Lahoy. In other words, not even light, how it's in a form of describable as potentiality. On that level of Yechilas, where there's nothing separate and there's no other entity has been revealed apart from the Atzmas, not even just the potential to reveal the Oyer, then on that we say Hu Ushmoi Echad. In other words, that even though we say it's only Hu, nonetheless we describe that Yechilas as Shmoi. We call it Shmoi. Because like we said, when you talk about somebody's capacity, then to a certain extent you've described him in a certain venue, on a certain avenue. So that to a certain extent, somehow or another, comes down from the absolute majesty, as you might call it, of the Atzmas. On the other hand, it's not another thing apart from the Atzmas. So therefore it's called Shmoi, but it's called Shmoi, how Hu Ushmoi Echad. The absolute withdrawn perfection of the Atzmas and the Yecholos in the Atzmus, they are really all one inyan. Hu u'shmoi echad. The hu, shmoi u'shmoi hu, k'moshe kosuv hashlo. But the Shlo uses the famous expression that he is his name and his name is him. Hu shmoi u'shmoi hu. In other words, he is his name and his name is him. Because we're talking about the name, how it is purely mitzad Yecholos, and so even though we talk about it as a Yecholos, but that cannot be considered as something apart from the Atzmus. It's not even a gili from the Atzmus. It's not even like the Atzmus potentially giving something forth. It's just what could be.
So why don't we just call him Atzmus? It's not separate from Atzmus.
No, that's what we're saying. That's the whole trick. That's what I went out of my way to say before, that if you talk about somebody, for example, he being able to do, you say he could do something. So to a certain extent you've brought in a certain venue of discussion about his atzmas, that he can do kach v'kach. So you've taken the whole shleimus of his atzmas, and to a certain extent you've described it in a certain direction. But if you think carefully, you haven't gone out of his atzmas yet, because he hasn't done it. It's very likely that it may never ever come about. But it could come about. Therefore, in that regard, on the one hand you've venued the Atzmus, and on the other hand you haven't gone out of the shleimus of the Atzmus. So that what you've already described, a certain way that the Atzmus could reveal itself, and that's called Shmoi. That's called his name, because it's already a description of a certain venue in which the Atzmus could go, but it hasn't done it yet. And it could be that it will never do it. That's the Maila of capacity or Yecholos. And therefore the Shlosh says very rightly that he and if we call that his name, then he and his name and him are all one. It's all one entity. It doesn't matter which way you come from it. But you do talk about hu shmoi. That's the trick. You are talking about hu ushmoi, but on the other hand, shmoi hu v'hu shmoi. That's the as you might call, the elevation and the perfection of the concept of Yecholos. Therefore, we pointed out the other night that the word hu, the word hu itself, is a Rosh Tevis hu ushmoi echad. The Rosh Tevis of the three words hu ushmoi echad is the word hu. So from that we see that when you say hu ushmoi, you're including that in the word. That's like a Rosh Tevis of the word, which means him himself. And that's the whole trick. On the one hand you're talking about him himself, on the other hand you're hinting at possible inyanim which mitzad the shleimus and the withdrawnness of that atzmus could reveal themselves. So you're talking mitzad the atzmus, but you're also talking about something that can mitzad that shleimus reveal itself. So on the one hand you're talking only about the shleimus, only about the perfection of the atzmus. Yet on the other hand you're saying that could reveal itself in a certain venue or certain derech, and that's called shmoi, even though it hasn't become any entity, klal or klal. And that's the difference, that the oil which is shayat to Amshocha V'Gil has only become a oil. Shal zeh nema hu u'shmoi echad v'hu shmoi u'shmoi hu k'moish kosav ashla. V'yal zeh omru ha'mukubalim d'shmoi kadmoin k'kadmusoi k'moish nizbur b'shom b'dibur ha'maschu hanal. As it was written over there in the Maimon which was mentioned here before, and also in earlier Maimon. The truth is, the Rebbe is also he brings that down. That there's a whole discussion in the great Mukubalim, and he mentions certain of them there, the Ramami Pano, and the Ramach, the Rabbeinu Moshe Kodavida. But he was more or less a contemporary with the Arizal. The Ramam Pano was later, and the Shari Uiro, another great early Makubal prior to the result. But all of these, they discuss the level of what's called Kesser. When we talk about the Spheres of Kesser, or the Inen of Kesser, the Maila, and the Inen from Shmoi, Shem, and Kesser also have a connection, one with the other. So there's differing opinions about the relationship of the Kesser to the Atzmas, as to how does it relate, and how does it function, and how does the union of Shem relate to that. So there's certain Mukubalim that they hold that there's a level in the Avish's name. That name is primordial, just like he is. They find a reference to that in the famous Maimon Chazal, what it's brought down in Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam Hoyahu Ushmoi Bilvad. Ad Shaloi Nivra Ha'olam means until the world wasn't created, meaning before the creation of the world, there was he and his name alone. Hoyahu Ushmoi Bilvad. So the question that occurs on that Maimon Chazal is, what is Shachar before Nivra Ha'olam? There wasn't whole Matthias, and it was Koidem Shenivra Ha'olam. It was even prior to what you might call the whole process of Nivra Ha'olam. Because Chassidus teaches that the expression Ad Shalei Nivra Ha'olam can even and does in many drushim even refer to the Tzimtzum Arishan, even prior to the Tzimtzum, which was a long time before the actual Indian of Bris Ha'olam. Is Hoyahu Shmoi Bilvad. It was Shaykh from Shmoi if there's nothing to call him by name, if there's not any oilamers or receivers or beneficiaries, as you might call it, of his name, then what is Shaykh to say he should have a name? So therefore, certain Mephoshim want to learn from that there's a certain level in the name of the Eibishter which is primordial, like he. In other words, just like he is before any svara or dream of any Matthias of Oilamers, of worlds, what he was always like that primordially prior to the Oinion of the Oilamers, then we have to say that there's a union called Shmoi, a name of his name, which is also in the same Oifen, that it's primordial just like he is. So that creates the whole Shaila. How can you say he has a name if he didn't need it? I mean, what would the Eibshter be doing with a name if there's nobody to call his name, or there's nothing for that name to relate to? Because all I name is a concept of something that relates to something. So how do you say Ad Shalei Nivra Ha'olam Shmoi Bilvad? But from that, there's certain of these great Mekubalim want to say that there's a level of Shmoi which is Kadmoin Kadmusa. It's primordial and has exactly the same, how do you call it, way backness of the Eibishter as what the Eibishter does. And so that creates a kasha. How's Shaykh a name if there's nobody to relate the name to, or if there's nothing? If we're talking about as our level when Oilamus were not even considered, what's the point of it, or what's the possibility or the shaykhs of there being such a thing as his name? And so it comes along the Alter Rebbe over there, B'Shem the Arizal, and certain of the great Mekubalim, what their function was like to go between, how do you call it, to interrelate between different, seemingly differing opinions in the different shittas of the Kabbalah. And the Alter Rebbe answers that we could say that there is a gather of Shmoi Kadmoin Kadmusa if we talk about Yechoilas, because Yechoilas is only what he could do. He hasn't done it yet. So that's purely mitzad the Atzma. That's purely mitzad. Why could he do kaf? Because he's what he is. Because of the shleimus of the Atzma. But the Yechoilas is always the concept that nothing ever came about yet. It's only that he has the capacity, it could be done. It could be that way. And ever the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe brings it over there in earlier Maimon than Kiyum Chamakeh Chaim. But once again, he's mafire it more in detail in that Maimon of Kiyum Chamakeh Chaim. That's the union of Shmoi Kadmon Kekadmusai. In other words, it's a infant Shmoi, as we just pointed out, but it's not any Isgalus Mimana. Nothing's actually gone out from him. There's been no actual Gilui per se. Therefore, it's part of him, just like he is in his own essence of his own self. So the name is the same, because it's purely what he could do. It's one that hasn't actually occurred yet, and it's not shaykh yet to any Gilui. It may not ever be shaykh to any Gilui. So therefore, it's called Kadmon Kekadmusai. That's how they found out for the whole difficulty of that famous Maimah of the Pirchei, the Rabbi Eliezer, with all the inyanim which come out of it. That's how they found out for. That's how the Rebbe here, the Rebbe Shah brings over there, B'Shem the Rebbe in those drushim. Therefore, we found out for the shittas of those who say that Shmoi, which is Keser, can't possibly be Kadmon Kekadmusai. Shem is something that's mitkaleh from him. And the others want to say no, the Keser is Kadmon Kekadmusai. So it's like two contradictory shittas, two contradictory approaches. Comes from the elder Rebbe and said no, that we can say there's a ina, like the Shlosh says, Hu Shmoi, Hu. But that's mitzad the union of omnipotence, mitzad pure, mitzad the union from Yechoilas. And we can say that Shmoi is Kadmus, is Kadmon Kekadmusai. It's good according to those who say that the Kesef is Kadmon Kamoihu, and it's good according to those who say that Shmoi is only just a Gilui. Because we're not talking about Shmoi in the normal sense, we're talking about Shmoi as mitzad Yechoilas. Remember, that Kilu gets us out of all the difficulties, and that's like a middle path between the differing opinions that are brought over there in the name of the great Mukabalim. So the Rebbe, that's the union from Shmoi Kadmon Kekadmusai. A commission is Bosham Bedibur Hamaschila now. Ubechinas Zu, Zeo Bechinas Helem Ho'atzmi the Ein Save. שלמיילה מבחינס המשוחס והגילויים גם בשורשן היסר ראשון. Remember, when we use the expression and it says helem ho'atzmi, that means how the etzem himself is behelem mikol ha'inyanim. He's nailo umuvdal betachas ha'helem mikol dover, mikol gilui mimena mikol inyan. And that's what we call helem ha'in say. So that level of Shmoi Kadmon Kekadmusai is Nikla in the Madrege from Helem Ha'atzmi. It's still part of the Atman, like I said, in Atzmas, Einu Shayach Loima, Dover, Oi Dover, not a Ain, and I feel the heart's in a state of having not gone out yet. If that's the case, says the Rebbe, then that Madrege is covered by the concept of Helem Ha'atzmi. That's the same hiddenness and the same withdrawnness of the Atzmas of the Eibush himself. V'hamshochas bechinas u'madrege zu, zeu davke al yedei aveda b'kabbalah zel malchus shomai. So we see that the Eibush doesn't want to hide anything from Yid, particularly from the Shomas Yisrael, from the world. In general, as in ultimately speaking, everything's got to come out into Gilui. Dira b'tatoinim means that the etzem hador b'hadira is door in he dwells in the dira. Ultimately, then everything's got to come b'Gilui. So even the atzmus, how he's moved over helem ha'atzmi, even that's got to come b'Gilui. So ask yourself the shah, how can I come b'Gilui? It's l'mayla mikol ha'giluim. It's beyond the whole seder of Giluim. It doesn't enter the whole klole ha'gilui v'hamshoch. It's l'mayla muda migilui v'hamshoch. How's it going to come b'Gilui? So ain't a chanami. Only if he will give it. Only if the Eibush will give it forth in an even which is not shah to over the klole ha'gilui. Wow. Of everything has to be nimshach al yedei ha'adam. So how's he gonna be mamshik dovake? How's he gonna be mamshik dovake zeh? So that's the answer. Kabbalah Sel Malchusha, I am the Ika Aveda of the Avid Portion. So we see that that's a Chiddush Dover, like we saw before. Yesh B'Sem Mishum Chiddush. That a mensch could be a mensch, and a mensch would feel the Inif and Yesh, and he feels the Hagosha, and what you might call, he feels the pull of the world, and how it's become a Yesh. What that itself is a Chiddush Noya over there. Nonetheless, it's become, even Koseh, and he takes the whole Yesh and he just gives it away to the Rotzen of the Eibishter. Well, that's a Chiddush. Well, that's the famous Indian, the Indian from Bitla Yesh, which is compared in Siddur to the famous Moshe with the Tzipah HaMidaberet. You know the famous Moshe in Siddur, the Tzipah HaMidaberet. There are certain Vahadiko Kochatus or whatever they are, what they speak. So I mean, not that they have the Koach HaDibur, but they can, as it were, learn to copy the Koach HaDibur Shabbat. And so it's written that that's considered a Chiddush, and that can cause, even by Adam who's completely moved on, he doesn't have any shaykhs to the world around him, if you want to catch his attention, you sort of catch it through even a Dover Chiddush, even the Gabiyim, this is a Chiddush, the Haino, a Tzipah Midaberet. But that catches the attention even of Adam moved over Tatas, I feel like Melech was moved over. Yeah, but Reima Musa, we call it with the ganze Riches in that famous marshal of the Tzipah Midaberet. Favueske, it's a Chiddush neged HaTeva HaMutba. It's against the whole planet Teva in the ganze Seder Inyanim. Not just the mile of it, neged Kol HaTeva. That a simple little creature should all of a sudden start talking. That's the thing of it. Chiddush Nifla. That's a marshal for the Inni from Bitlayeh. And so Kavyoho, the Inni from Kabbalah Sel, Malchus Shemayim, well, that's that type of Chiddush. It's neged the whole, how do you call it, Seder of the Teva of the Yesh. The Teva of the Yesh is to be a Hagoshes Atzmusa. He had to feel himself and to live in his own Inyanim. To be locked up and to be kocht in his Inyanim. And to give himself completely away to the Rotzen of the Mitzvah Hamitras, and the Rotzen, how it is, Mitzvah the Eibster, that's a Chiddush Nifla. And that's a Dova Bilti Seder, Klal, and therefore that can call out Kavyochol. That's Isarusa Delatata, even though some Mamish Isarusa Delatata, but it's a sort of a Min Yisraelis which causes that the Eibster gives forth in and of Atzmusa Yisbarach, how it is to be a Chiddush Lahoya. That comes down, Mamish, Mitzad Havdalah of the Atzmus, Dafki to the Aveda from Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim. Whatever it's well known, the famous joke, or how do you call it, comic act that occurred, that there was once a Farbrengen, there was a big non-Chassid, I don't know what to call anybody nowadays, a Misnagid, it was a big, somebody wasn't yet a Chassid. The Farbrengen, one of the big Chassidim, told him that the whole reason he was created was to become a Tzipah HaMidaberet. The whole reason he was brought into the world, that he should become a talking cockatoo, become a talking bird. So you can understand it. He wasn't very complimented, and he wasn't he didn't feel very honored by that remark. Well, I would have thought that would have caused that was a bit of a sign of some sort of everybody's very moichen, tremendous shlita, moichen, no sign of any humor. Maybe that's a big matrei in this class. It's very high. Everybody's living up in the Chedus Atzmus. Ain't no new dog, Klal. You can't talk with these guys. Well, zij is given by Farbrengen. I know Chassid that was out there, voice of Misnagid. That the whole image you came in the world was to be a Tzipah Midah, to be a Tzipah Midaberet. Oh, wow. So that's what we're going to be doing. We'll be just talking into the dark. Tzipah Midaberet. Is that still working? Huh? So we have to hope that it was just a momentary weakness on the part of the whole setup here. It wasn't the heralding of a bigger mixture, chas v'shalom. That's what the Rebbe means, that you can only be mamshich. That even from the helem ha'atzmi, of the atzmi, so they ain't safe, who, shmoy, who, only through the way of Kabbalah Zel Malchusha, mine would be Ika, that's the way of the Eved, and the Eved Pashat, like we saw. You made an insult if he's there, that the Eved Pashat, he's a Chiddush. The Eved Pashat is a form of a tzipah medaber. Beim Shavin Chamsa, the core of Vedishim had Avavish Kashrus. He said, all forms of service to the Kol Avidois, any form of the different forms of service to the Avishta, whatever mitzad your love of the Avish and your Kashrus, and you're having bound yourself over to Elakus. And now he puts in a further Chiddush. Va'af gam mitzad hergish ha'is Kashrus ha'atzmius k'moi ba'ben el Oviv. She'esh gam hergish ha'is Kashrus al kol upon him. He said, wherever you feel that you are bound yourself over, you're bound over. You are an entity, but you're bound over with a tremendous burning atzmistic love to something else. Then, says the Rebbe, all of that, say the resultants of that type of avodah is only hamshachas v'giluyim from the Rebbe. Pretty heavy going. I feel that somebody that these whole avodas, he feels the bonim atem Hashem alakechem. He feels Hayidin, the sons of the Eibush, and he devoted to the Eibush like a tata. He said, well, the Ben and the Father are two entities, and there's a ishkashus between them. The Ben is Makusha B'Yovid, but he at least feels that as a hergit. He's verkocht in a certain feeling and a certain emotional kesher between him and the Vater. Therefore, that's Megala Mil Maila Lamata, only a ini which is below Rishat to Gilui. I'm sure it's Vagir Gilui. I'm sure. Apel. The angel Magir B'Pchinas Atzmus Mamish, and he said that doesn't reach the union of the Atzmus Mamish. Kiyim ba'aveda b'kabbalah zel malchus shamayim she'ein kan shum matziyah. There's no matziyah of the mention himself. Like we said, he's been mevachel his whole inyan because he feels it completely another thing. He doesn't feel doing mitzvahs and all that as being his own inyan that he would have really been into. But once he knows that that's Ratzon Hashem, and he gives himself away entirely to Ratzon Hashem. In Mamila, there's not somebody who is binding himself up and feels a tremendous devotion and his kashrus and all that. It's purely and utterly a all. How do you call it? A yoke, which has bound him up. But that binds up his whole metzias to the mitzvah of the mitzvahs. So therefore he said, "She'ein kan shum metzias." Ki im rak oil ha'oden she'olov la'avoid b'kiyum atera mitzvah b'poil mamish levara berudim milmata la'mayla. This takes it back to earlier in the Maimah where we saw the whole union of the Chayzer and the Mailas of the Aveda mitzad mata la'mayla, the even not Shiloh b'Seifan with all the Riches and the Maila the Aveda sabirudim. But that's milmata la'mayla las is lo yizbara dira betach Dira betach Taini. If Abamel come to us an amazing statement that the Rebbe said, Mitzad Aveda B'Amitius Kabbalah Zel Malchus Shamayim. But that's the fundament of the whole Aveda, the Eved Poshut. That means that Mitzad the Odom who's doing the Aveda, he's not really there. Ain't no Shum Matziyah. He's there, but he's not really there. Like we said the other night, he's like a boring in the hands of the audit. He's not really there. What is there? What is there, Begollah? Only the oil of the order. Now think carefully what he's saying. He said, really not the mensch is there, only what is demanded is there. The Hainu the mitzvah. And so he doesn't really do anything, he's just there, but he's not there. What is really there, if it's tries to say that anything is really there, well, that's the union of the etzem oil of the mitzvah. But that's got to be done and has to be done. Yeah, therefore, that makes the union from dira b'tak, but dira b'tak tainim. Because the only way there can be a emes, dira b'tak tainim, is if you're just one of the parts of the house. You're not really a matzia. It's nayatzman. What would you like to be? You'd like to be one of the legs of the table?
Yeah, right. Rabbi, we said before though that there still is a connection to physical ideas.
Previous ideas.
Physical ideas.
Physical ideas.
Yeah.
Who has a connection with physical ideas?
He doesn't, or he does. That's my question.
The Evid Poshet?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, the Evid Poshet. He's definitely drawn by the physicality of the world.
But he doesn't have.
So that's the whole point. So what's he doing Torah mitzvahs? He should be just trying around doing what he wants. He's not attracted be'etzem to the Torah mitzvahs like the Evid Naaman, but he feels a tremendous, unbelievable drive and geschmack in the mitzvah. Yeah. So the reason why the Evid Poshet does a mitzvah because he just knows he's been commanded and he's got to do it. So that means that Beregahu, when he does it, he's giving away his whole soul. Because he wouldn't really be there if it weren't for the fact that it was a commandment to be there. You follow? The Evid Naaman comes running. The Evid Naaman, he's there from hours beforehand. He's cooking and the whole thing. And so when he does the mitzvah, he does the mitzvah because, this is connection with the Evid, this is kashrus and this is mitzvah. Over the Evid Poshet, he said, here's a mitzvah. We have to do it while the Evid wants only because of that. I don't really know. Over the Evid said he had to do it, we have to do it. We have to do it the same way. That's the pshat. So therefore the Rebbe says that when he does a mitzvah, he's not really there. What is really there is only the oil of the order. And what is the oil of the order? That's a commandment that this has to be done. Which means that what is really there, the rotzen of the Eivishter, not him. I'm asking by the Evid Naaman, he's there. And also the rotzen of the Eivishter is there. But that's what he meant by Avavitz Kash. It's like two inyonim that they link up together. And the Chiddush was that even by a ben, there's also such a thing. Even though the ben and the father are really one etzem, but that's like two inyonim. And at least the ben feels that he wants to be makusha to his father. If he feels, and he has a drawing to be makusha, then it's like two entities that are drawing one to the other, and they feel one to the other, and they appreciate almost as you might say one to the other. If you already appreciate it, it's a tremendous thing, but that's not the amitius movement that they ever push. It's an unbelievable zach that when the Evid Poshet does something, he's not really there anymore. It's only the Rotzen Havai. It's Meir B'Shas Mais. So therefore says the Rebbe, Rak oil ha'od and sha'olav la'aveit b'kiyum ha'torah mitzvah b'fa'am v'yam change. La'aseh shlo yizbor a b'tak tenim. That's the emes ha'inyan of a dira b'tak. Yeah, a dira b'tak tenim. That's what I heard. I once heard from one of my really close to my spirit, someone that I really admired him very much, is the grandfather of the rabbi upstairs, Rabbi Goldschmidt. There's a young fellow up there, the Rosh Yeshiva called Goldschmidt. You guys don't even know? What do you mean you don't? He's Zayda. I was very close with his Zayda. He was an unbelievable. I used to hear Shur from him at the beginning. He gave a whole series of Shur. It was near the beginning. So there was once a Fabrengen, and he said a very similar thing. There was a guy that he was very sympathetic to Chabad, but he was from literature background. He hadn't been brought up in Pakistan, but he came to Fabrengens and he appreciated things, and he was he was trying hard to get really involved, and somebody. All of a sudden, the Rav Nachman, swung around him once, and if I bring him, he said the same thing. He said, you should realize nobody's talking to you. He said, after a couple of minutes, David doesn't talk to you. He said, David, you don't really matter. He said, you don't really matter or anything. He said, your whole thing is only to make a deal of a bar of a taktim. You're just a borek to make a deal of a taktim. He said, if you'll do that, then you carry out the whole reason why he created some. Last is loyis borek, for him, the deal, not for you. He said, you don't make it for yourself. Who's talking with you? Who worries about you? So the guy was shocked. He'd taken it back. So he said in Yiddish, it was very clever. He said to him in Yiddish, he said to Rav Nachman, he said, no word of parnasa. Word of parnasa. In Yiddish, an expression, where's the earning? Where do you get anything out of this? What do you get out of it? It's in Yiddish, word of parnasa. What's the benefit? Or what's the gain? What's the gain from it? Sometimes we don't have any gain from anything. We're just like, to make a deal with, like I used the expression, like a bolt to be screwed. That's all we have. Just got to be dear lawyers, bought a batak, train him. So he said to him, very clever. It's one of those expressions. It's hard to get over the full implication in other languages. So Nachman said to him, no. He said, yeah. He said, if you want a bit of the change and you want a little bit for yourself, he said, first of all you got to go through this. First of all you got to be completely and utterly, your holiness, all your asses, and then afterwards he'll work out what he's got to give you. Whatever he'll give you, that'll be your benefit. whatever you'll decide to give you after you've already made him the deal of Taktanim, how do you call it? Hakol Rev, everything will be a profit. You don't really know what you're looking for, and know what is the Indian was there. Well, if you do that, then for sure, you'll come to what might be your emes tachlis, and your emes what you might call reward of who knows what it is. Anyway, that's what he said to him. Very, very profound. I mean, that's the whole thing that's written here. In other words, that's what the Eved portion in Yoni is that he's not really there. He's only last. He's making the Eivishtat here. He's preparing for the order. And the order, if there'll be any Tainuk, then that'll be the Orden's time. If the Orden will be, the Orden will have Tainuk, not he'll be pleased because the Orden has Tainuk. But somehow or another, the Orden's Tainuk will become his. So Rav Nachman said, we don't quite know how that works. Go work out what that means. That's what it'll be. So ultimately, Hashem will look after you, on the contrary, in a very elevated way that can't be calculated. But that's not the Indian of the Eved Pasha. He doesn't go looking for that. It happens to him. It becomes like what you might call an ultimate result. Not he goes looking for that. That was the Rebbe does in the Union. He said, "Davke magi b'chin shmoy akol biatzmus mamish, shehu b'chin helem or atzmi de'ein seif mamish." Now that reaches the Indian I was over before of who shmoy, who another the Indian had the shmoy, which is not really shmoy. It's just the shleimus and the perfection of the yachidus of the atzma. That's what we see in the pasuk. After you have to remember all the mitzvahs, laman tizkuru vasismas kol mitzvoi soy. At the end of pasuk tzitzis, in other words, at the beginning it's written kol mitzvahs havaya, but at the end it's written that you must remember kol mitzvoi soy, and then v'yisem kedoshim clearly, hey, chem, and then you should be holy to your Eibishter. So what is that? What's the hemshel? What's the connection? It's written in other places, what is the pshat? That you should become kedoshim, like your Eibishter, or to your Eibishter, or with your Eibishter. So he said the purus is lahamshik oisoy is barach liyois beprinas kodesh, that you have to be mamshik the Eibishter, that you become through that kodesh kilo with his kedusha. In other words, that you bring him down in those amatziyas, that you reach kedusha through him. Lahamshik oisoy is barach liyois kodesh. In other words, maybe the remez is that your mamshik the Eibishter, that he should be willing to be kodesh lagabecha, because he's l'mayla than kodesh also. He's complete and utterly helam da'in say. Oh, but what's it mean lapoyo? It means is that you bring down and you become, as it were, absorbed, and your oifen of life becomes kodesh in the way that he's kodesh, in that way that he's kodesh. Mitzad helam ha'atzmi. V'ha'inyan, he said, the Hine says that Rebbe Yedua sheyesh beis b'chinas kodesh. So two different inyanim in kodesh. Ha'alef, mashe kodesh hu muvdal mitzad ha'atzmi. There's something that's kodesh hu muvdal in his own essence, beyond and muvdal from all other entities. He's kodesh in his own self. That he called self-withdrawn completely. V'beish mashe muvdal mizulosei. He's kodesh hu muvdal from another entity, or from another person. So that's already a relative kodesh. So there is a Damasha kodesh who moved down mizulosei. Or that what we could say that an entity, or in this particular case in the Nimshal, we're talking about the Eibishter, that he's moved out from another entity, who bechinas ain't saved, sheyesh lo shayches adayin leishtaushelets. Oh, that's the if an ain't saved, that he's moved out, but nonetheless he's got a certain shayches to the Indian of Ishtaushel. The Hainu, or that that we saw even before the Tzimtzum, well, it's moved on Ishtaushel, it's Kodesh legam Ishtaushel, but it's got a shayches, it's bechinas hamshocha v'gilui mi'atzmas, even prior to the Tzimtzum. So therefore it's Kodesh mitzad that is prior to the Tzimtzum, but it's got a certain shayches, so it's only relative kedusha, it's only relative separation. Yeah. Therefore it's called Kodesh mi'azulas. Aval ha'er ha'kolo bi'atzmusei mamish, or that Indian that we spoke about before, of Yechilas, who between it, wherever, kolo bi'atzmusei mamish, who she'kodesh moved out mitzad atzmoi. He's kodesh moved out in his own essence, not legabi something else, but he's so kodesh that there's nothing else everywhere. He's just moved out mitzad the helema atzmi, as we call it. Akamation is boil you, but dimba matching from my time now. Uba dimba matching beinian hamelacha kodesh. In reference to the that we say on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, not a kela kodesh, but a hamelacha kodesh. So what's written over there? That's put down in many places, but it's written in both of these Maimorim. We see in our king, in our Emes Melech over a Medina, that he has in himself two aspects to what you might call his roimamas. Because the whole success of a king and the whole essence of a king is that he's withdrawn and higher, and he's another elevated entity compared to everybody else, and that's how he becomes a king. Because if he's just one of the boys, as they say, then he can't be a king. Yeah, but in the elements of the elevation and the withdrawnness is he a king. But in that Gufa there are two levels. There's one level how the king is withdrawn from all the people in the Medina. He's withdrawn, he's drawn back, he keeps out of the way, he's got all his own things, allowed to have anything to do with his thing, and he's got a palace, allowed in, and, he's withdrawn and moved out from the people in the Medina. And that gives him the power over them in the form of an absolute ruler, so then he's able to also come down into details for their sake and can make all sorts of laws and deal with all sorts of which run the Medina. And it's all about Tanya that the more he's moved on, the more the Hatzlacha of his Reimamus, then the more the things that he decrees for the Medina are Matzliach, and the more they're able to get through and function for the sake of the people, etc., etc. But then there's another Inyan, which you might say, why did he become the Melech and not somebody else? Because B'yemes, B'atzmusa, he's got a Reimamus and a separation in his own self. But he's Be'etzim, a different sort of a person. He's Be'etzim, a Muvdal and a Marumam, in his very essence, and that doesn't relate to the people in the Vineyard. They have no musik in the emissary elevation of the king. Now, that's something which is only miyuchat with him, and that's only him himself. For example, it's brought down by the first king of Yidno, that was Shaul HaMelech, when Shmuel was sent to anoint him. Then Shmuel saw Shaul HaMelech, and he saw that he was Mishich Moy Ulamayla Gavoya Mikol Ha'am, that he saw that from his shoulder blade and high, he was higher than everybody. Not just that he was tall, but he was sort of very elevated. Mishich Moy Ulamayla Gavoya Mikol Ha'am. So in the famous hymn from Summit to Summit, the Rebbe Rashab is Masbir, the Shechem is like the shoulder blade. That's like they call the chitzenius of the midas. The midas is out to the leg, to the chazeh, of the back is like the chitzenius bilvad. That even in the chitzenius of his midas, he was lamayla mikol. How much more so in his moichin? How much more so in the pnimis of his moichin? How much more so? He was completely, utterly moved out, called Shari Ha'om, and that's how he became melech. Amamela nimtza that the melech has got in himself a reimamus atzmius mitzad atzmoy. And that's the reason why he becomes a king Melchatchila. That's the greatness which is Mamela Mashpia and gives a tremendous, albeit but Havdalah, not directly, into the Reimamus al Ha'am, to the relative Reimamus which Marumam Meha Anoshim. Also we have those two inyanim. We have the which is Shatam Shochav Gilui, but that's Reimamus. But that's Reimamus al-Am. But that's a Keil HaKodesh. But Keil is even from the scholars. You read it. Melech HaKodesh, well, that's the Indian, how the Melech is Kodesh, how he's only Melech, but in that Kufi, he's Kodesh. But that's the Kedusha and the Reimamus Mitzad HaEtzer. The Reimamus HaAtzmet. And that's Mitzad the Maila Kavi over there. Al-Maila, that's how the Evish is moved over Tachlis. All together in the Inen van Atzmusay, the Maila Mikol Inen Gilu HaMalucha, and yet the Emes Shoyrish of the Malucha is really from there. And the Bam Shocha Gilu, that's the Reimamus al Kol HaNivroim Kaviyah, Kol HaIlamas, Kol what you might call the Kol Anshi HaMedina. So that's two different inyonim. That's called Chitanius HaMalchus and Pnimius HaMalchus. But for the sake of the world, and for the sake of the Kiyum or Elam and the Etzimina of the Bria per se, it's enough Chitanius HaMalchus. You have to have that. If you didn't have that, then you wouldn't have the world just wouldn't keep functioning. There is that, but then there's what we call Pnimius HaMalucha. But Pnimius HaMalucha is, the Eibishter, how he's mamish mudal me kol zeh, and this is mitzad the kedushas ha'atzmus, mitzad the emitis inyan of atzmus is barach, but that's the kaviyach, the mile of the melech, the roi mamusay mitzad etzem atzmusay, the mile from the roi masalam. And those mamorim over there, and in many places in Israel. But the Indian of Yidden is that Yidden, their shoyros is in the roi masa'at. They're not really shot to the Eilam. They're really their shoyros is from the Eivishter, how he's mamish moved on Mikol, mamish atzmusa. And that's what you say that the Yidden shoshem ba be'atzmus l'mayla Mikol ha'giluim. Therefore, Rosh Hashanah, Yidden have the ability. They have the koyah to be megala the pnimis ha'malucha, the hainu, the Eivishter how he is, mamish mitzad atzmusa moved on Mikol ha'briya. And therefore we mentioned, when was it? No, maybe it was last night in the Iron Base. there's a famous sikha from the Rebbe where the Rebbe said if you look at all the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah, you see that all the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah in Yonam is the inyan from Gila of Moshiach and the inyan from the Yossi Glover. All of them. One out there, it's a rule over the whole world with your glory and appear before your glory, all the dwellers of the earth, and that every made thing should know that you made him ato pialto. But I come to Arichis over there, and look carefully, you'll see that all the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah are all bakoshes for the inyan of Moshiach. Take it from me, and miyad. And I asked the question, since on Rosh Hashanah, Yidden Shreid and they bet and they getumel. As they feel about the whole inyan from Mashiach, what is going on? Why is this so much going on? I love it. What's the hold up? But I felt that the whole situation is running amok. The whole world shows. It's all this going down the bubble hole, you know, go down the drain. Come on. What are we waiting for? If you look in all the tefillahs of Russia, you'll see that that's what they're all about. Because Yidden daven on Rosh Hashanah, the Goyim drains are full on Rosh Hashanah. Yidden daven on Rosh Hashanah. Yidden, their shoulders is in the Reimus Ta'atzmus, not just the Reimus Salam. So, they also get the Reimus Salam, they get the world back, and they get a world of in that Guva, they're going to bring down the Dira B'tach Toinim, what that means, the Dira for the Etzem HaMelech, the way the Melech is Piatzme, he dwells in his Dira the way he is Mitaratzme, not the way he's just Reim Maruman from the peoples. And therefore, the whole inyan of Rosh Hashanah is Gilui Atzmas. And that's called Pnimis HaMalucha. That's called the Pnimis of the king and the Pnimis of his ruling over the people. That's what is called HaMelech HaKodesh. He's Melech, but in Melech Gufa he's Kodesh. And that's the inyan of what we're talking about here. The Oya Kolo B'Atzmusei Hu Yesh HaKodesh HaMudlim Mitzad and that's the inyan of HaMelech HaKodesh. Zeu v'yishim kedoshim le'elikeichem lahamshik mebchinas kedushas ha'atzmiyas liyeh b'chinas kodesh l'gabi b'chinas kodesh l'gabi ha'olamah. So he says that that's the whole inyan that the Yidden ask the Eibishter, and their aim is yishim kedoshim le'elikeichem, that you bring down the kedusha ha'atzmiyas of the Eibishter into you, so you become Kodesh and Mutal l'gabi l'elamah, because all the elamas are only makabel from the kedusha ha'atzmiyas that goes down through ha'orabuva for the sake of the elamah. But the Pnimis HaMalucha, the Pnimis of the Malchus, is really the Etzem HaMelech K'moshu. That's how he became Melech Melech HaTfilah Kaviyachol. That's the thing. He's mitzvah soy, the mitzvahs that they are in that. V'yishim kedoshim le'elikeichem, you become the same kedusha as the Eibishter Mamish B'atzmusei, and therefore you become how they call it kedusha l'gabi the whole over the world. So therefore, if you didn't want, they can be the boss over the whole world. And here we see Rashmoni Nitran, they're doing exactly for care. They're buching sich and bowing themselves down and shraying to the ground, please rule over us and take everything away from us. You be the Balabat. And we'll be little nebels on the klish in a room and a few hundred square yards of what used to be Eretz Yisrael. There's a whole group of Yidden that know about it, and they should know better. And so what do? He throws a bone to the dog, and he throws a few million. Here's a few million. Everybody knows what's happening. Everybody knows what's happening. Arafhan. That's in when he's in Gedashim, well, Hamship, Kedusha Atzmis, Lia begins Kodesh Mutal Gabi Oilemas. Behind the begins our Gedusha Gabi Oilemas, yeah, we stousless, yeah, we begins Kedusha Atzma. That your relationship and your withdrawalness and your highness, your Kedusha Gabi Oilemas, there should be the inner, yeah, begins Kedushas Atzmas Davke. So you might say, well, that's only shot to Yidden. How can that be shot to the whole world? Yeah? At least Yidden should be mamshich on himself, that Kedusha. Yeah? And so they become the Kedusha, the immediate Atzmus, Gabi the world, what the worlds have come about, it's the second Kedusha, the other lower form of Kedusha. But if Yidden will have that, and they will be in that relationship to the whole world, they'll have the Kedusha immediate, then they'll be boiled in the whole world. That's exactly what he says. That the Kedusha, how it is, Gabi the Oilemas, should really be that Kedusha of the Atzmas. And that's what he teaches. V'hainu, the Prince HaKedusha, Gabi Oilemas, v'shtausen, yeh mi Prince Kedusha Atzmas davke. Ukemoi, in HaMalucha the Neshamas Yisrael, mamshichim. And like the Malucha that Yidden are supposed to be, and are able to be mamshich, Einer begins on Melech HaKodesh, begins Pnimis on Malucha. That they should be mamshich, the first on themselves, and then they can be Megala that in the whole world, that the whole world, even how the Eibusher relates to the Eilemas, will be Davke from that Kedusha. Which means that the whole world will just be Gilela, the whole world will just Gilela Kuch. But come on, Yidden HaMalucha, the Neshamas Yisrael mamshichim. Einer begins on Melech HaKodesh, begins Pnimis on Malchus, Liyesh Gilui HaMalucha mamish. Shezei ini shemavachshim b'Rosh Hashanah. That's what we ask on Rosh Hashanah. That it should be tachel like that. Malech ao elam kulei bichvei techo, in your COVID, in your Malchus. You should rule over the whole world that way. In other words, the we as Yidden should be mamshich the Kedusha Amitiyas on ourselves, and that will go out to the whole. And Sipshat Yishim Kedoshim, you'll have the Kedusha Amitiyas and Pnimis HaMalchim, and that'll pour out of the whole world. Until it'll become a Zayinian, V'ainu Ad Sheyeda Kol Pol Kiato Pialta. And to any Paul, anything that's made, any made creature in the whole creation, will know that Ato Pialta, will know that Atzmas Ein Sofer Tim Gemak, made him. Pialta. You'll feel, everybody will feel, yeah, how Atzmas Ein Sofer made him. Yeda Kol Paul Kiato Pialta. That's him. So first of all, of course, Malech al Kol Ha'olam Kulei before you bring down the Pnimis HaMalucha, and then it sinks in even by everybody. All the field, this whole thing. Yeah, even it's mashma that the Rebbe is saying that the whole world could even feel that way. Yeda Kol Paul Kiato Pialta. What you guys don't know the famous story, what happened with the Alter Rebbe? Didn't I tell you guys about it? Famous story with the Alter Rebbe.
Many famous stories.
Well, it was a famous story where, the Haggadah of the whole story was that when the Alter Rebbe was by the Magid, then Rosh Hashanah, the Magid wanted somebody to be Tokeya. So the Alter Rebbe offered to be, then the Magid taught him all the Seides of the Inif and the Tkiyat. You know the famous story. And the Alter Rebbe said he didn't know how to play. He's very sorry he didn't know how to blow the shape. You're supposed to laugh mischievously like that, but that's the way it was. He learned all the Seides from the Magid, and then he said he doesn't know how to blow the shape. So anyway, that particular Rosh Hashanah, there was somebody else who was going to blow the shape. I said, when it came to the time for Tkiyah Sheva, and the Magid was on the bima with a lot of people there, ready to blow the Sheva, all of a sudden he looked around the Magid and he said, "Where's Zalman? Where's?" Before they started all the psukim and everything, they said, "Where's the Alter Rebbe? Where's Zalman?" People. So all of a sudden, one person said, "Oh, he saw him in the room down the end, at the end of the hall. There's a small room. He saw him down in there." So the Maggid said, "Go get him and bring him up here. We can't blow the shofar without him. I want him here." darf him open after the beamer, then we'll be able to blow the shofar. So this guy goes rushing down and he turns into this room at the end of the hall or wherever it was, and he finds the altar. We don't know the story. He finds the altar stretched out on the floor with a stender. You know, the altar is done with a stender. You know, it's famous. Quick, but the altar said he dumps mit the stender. Well, that's another story. So anyway, he's laying on the floor, he's flat out with a stender, on the floor. And he said he's just barely managing to sort of mutter a few words, and he's laying out on the floor, completely, gone in another world. And he hears him saying, "Yeda kol po kiato pa'alte." There he was, out on the floor, his feet, head, everything the same level, the stender, whole butter, yeda kol po kiato. So this guy thinks, what's he going to do? He's got to get him up onto the beamer. The Maggid had to bring him to the beamer. He sees him in a Vegas and so much. What's he going to do? So he decides that he jumps down outside the altar and he shouts into his ear. He said, "The Rebbe ruft here." He said, "The Rebbe is calling you." So all of a sudden the altar jumped up out of the hole. The way he sprung up like a spring. He said, where here? So he said, on the beamer, they're going to blow shade outside. Put himself together. The second he's out of the room, right on up on there, he's up on the beamer. So it just shows you, what he heard, the Rebbe roofed it. The Rebbe's going, upon him. It's later, they asked the old Rebbe, they're blowing shofar and everything. He got down and laying on the floor. What did he do? What sort of a giluim is that? So the Alter Rebbe said that he heard that Ato Pialte, Yeda Kol Pawul, even things that the mamish made things, they're going to hear Sha'ato Atzmus. He said, if you have some idea about that, then you're just not here. You're dying where I'm. Okay. So that's what the Rebbe said. That's Pnimis HaMalchus. That's the Pnimis of Malchus. If you bring down the Etzem Atzmus of the Eibishter and you bring it down into the Gilui of the world, then even a Paul is a simple made thing. All of a sudden, here's what's your made thing? Kiato Pial. Atzmus Eitzefetim Gemar. Where are we holding it? V'hainu ha'amshachas b'chinas shmoi ha'atzmi mamish ma'ashe shmoi kadmoi. Well, that's the amshacha and the gilui of the Eibishter's name, how shmoi kadmoi. In other words, even how it is tzad atzmis, yechilu tzad atzmis mami. Because they're mamshichem al yidei aveda b'chinas kabol v'soel malchus shamayim davke. Give up. He said, how are you going to do that? Only through Kabbalah Zeh Malchus Shamayim. So I mean, that itself needs a beer rochav. Just Kabbalah Zeh, that's it. So we're having a talk. Maybe at some point we need to sort of sum up this whole, but upon the Ikea has to be the unit from Kabbalah Zeh. Because then it's not you anymore. It's not your unit anymore. It's humanity. Atzmasei ain't safe, and then the Kedusha becomes the Kedusha Amitius of the Melech HaKodesh, the Melech HaOyir Mitzad Atzmai. So who Yisron Mailu Madregas Yankiv Avdi Al B'chinas Yisrael. And this is the Maila of Yankiv, what he's Yankiv Avdi, even the new name that Yaakov got Yisrael, what that's they called Sorisa Im Elokim V'Anoshim V'Tulchal. That you broke the whole Helen V'Esther, the Tzimtzum, the elderly, when it came to the highest Madregas. Oh, he said there's a Maila in Yankiv Avdi, in the union of Yankiv, in the Poshet Aveda from Eved Poshet. That's very interesting. I had a guy that came to the Sudan on Shabbos. He's related to Rabbi Kmer, a nice fellow. He came in to eat with us, and he said to me, he asked Mamish a kasha in the Sudan. So we found that Avraham Avinu, once he got the name Avraham, and then he never has the name Avram again. He's only called Avraham, and the same with Sarah. It's just never called Sarah again. Gavi Yankiv, we found that they changed his name, and yet he's called Yankiv in a lot of psukim, and the Nevi'im, and different places. Even psukim in the Torah, they call him Yan. That's a good question. State the question in the Kasha state in Tziddah. Befrat, I said the Gemara Masechta Brachos, which says that once Avram got called Avram, then if you call him Avram, you're over Afanese. They state in the Gemara. Ad Krika. And here is always an Yaakov, and so the answer is that once Avram moved out of Avram into Avraham, then that's a complete change. Be'etem b'chol ha'bechinos. So he's not shaykh anymore. That's a whole new meaning. But that what he was called Yisrael, that didn't change the fact that they're still in the avodah of Yankiv, the inyan of Yankiv. And on the contrary, it's still a Ike inyan. It's just that there's a mila in certain Giluim and certain inyanim which is called Yisrael. But it's not meshana the fact that there is a madreg. Ma'ashekin l'gab Avram, when the inyan from Avram drops out of it. It's not shaykh anymore. Mit Yankiv, there's two madregas, Israel and Dokum Tais, the pink verkehrt, that it has to remain the name Yankiv, because the name Yankiv is a Ike Inen in the Hoved, and that's the Inen of Yankiv Avdi. Yeah, my servant. Well, I was over from my servant, he's stuck in mine. Yeah, I just use him like just drain him in like a bowl. Yankiv Avdi. Yankiv Avdi al B'chinas Yisrael, Dalaham Shu B'chinas Atzma saying, say, Mamish, so Davka Alidei B'chinas Yankiv Avdi. Remember, you can't possibly rule out Yankiv. Once you got this world, you got this world. But you still have to have, and on the contrary, Yankiv is a Ike, Shebekolo Inyonim, Yankiv Avdi. So therefore, Yankiv remain. Tumavur, come and do say, the citizen, I'll be saying in the Torah, but we do it. This, the Rebbe, I mean, what it means is, we want Mashiach now. That's what it adds up to.